Today's story is a story of how 4 fishermen became 4 disciples.
As he walked by the Sea of Galilee, he saw 2 brothers, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fish for people." Immediately they left their nets and followed him. As he went from there, he saw 2 other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John, in the boat with their father Zebedee, mending their nets. And he called them. Immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. Jesus went throughout Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and curing every disease and every sickness among the people. So his fame spread throughout all Syria, and they brought to him all the sick, those who were afflicted with various diseases and pains, demoniacs, epileptics, and paralytics, and he cured them. And great crowds followed him from Galilee, the Decapolis, Jerusalem, Judea, and from beyond the Jordan. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
Wayne grew up in a small, poor section of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Befitting that area of the town, Wayne's father was a day laborer at the local fabric factory, struggling to make ends meet. Wayne had a lot of ambition, but it seemed like the odds were stacked against him, except for the fact that he had one thing going for him. He was a pretty good basketball player. Not a real star, not a LeBron James, but a good, solid player. And hoping against hope, he sent out letters of request to schools seeking some financial aid. And to his amazement, one day, the letter came from Wake Forest University offering him a basketball scholarship. He was overwhelmed. His 4 years at Wake Forest, as he played ball for that school, never did find him as a starter, but he was always a good, solid player off the bench. Good defense, good quickness, hard work ethic. He graduated, and Wayne took a position, entry level, with PepsiCo Corporation. Because of that work that got him through school as a basketball player, that work enabled him to slowly rise up the ranks until, in 1986, Wayne became the chief executive officer of Pepsi-Cola. And under his leadership, under his tenure, PepsiCo increased in market value by $35 billion. And as the company grew in its fortune, Wayne grew in his generosity. He gave millions to Wake Forest University. As a matter of fact, they even named a school after him called the Wayne Calloway School of Business on Wake Forest's campus. When he was back for a reunion of his basketball team, he was asked why he was so extravagantly generous with Wake Forest, and these are his exact words. "Everything I am and everything I have today is due to a college that took a chance on giving a scholarship to a small runt of a guy in a big basketball world. I can never give enough to Wake Forest University." Have you ever felt that way? Has anybody ever done something for you so magnanimous, so out of the blue that you were just overwhelmed? Maybe somebody believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself. Maybe someone gave you a shot of courage when you were feeling very timid. Who knows? But if you ever felt that giftedness that turned your life around and gave you a shot of adrenaline and pointed you in a new direction, if you ever felt that, then you know exactly how Wayne Calloway felt when he opened up that scholarship letter from Wake Forest University. You'll also know exactly how those 4 fishermen felt that day on the seashore. Because, let's face it, they were probably not having a banner day. No fisherman had really a joyous day that was not in some way tainted by the smell of fish or the glare of people walking by, because you didn't really aspire to be a fisherman back in Jesus' day. No little boy woke up saying, "Oh, I sure hope I'm a professional fisherman so I can break my back under the hot sun and be at the mercy of those fish and tend nets until my fingers are all calloused and have the gazes of people looking disapprovingly at me. Oh, I can't wait to be able to be with my buddies who are as miserable as I am and curse a lot with language as salty as the ocean." They didn't do that because that was one of your last and least jobs. And so the fishermen were used to that, and they were used to the people walking by on the seashore, glancing at them, and then just walking on past as if ignoring them. That's what they did, except for that one man, Jesus, who never seemed to look at people the way other people looked at people. And he stopped. And where other people would see profane fishermen, he saw people with possibility. Whereas other people would see people with limitations and callousness, he saw people with potential and hope and talents. And so Jesus, looking at these men who were down on themselves, simply stopped, put out a hand, I imagine, and said, "Follow me, and you'll be fishing for something much more important than fish." Now, those fishermen probably knew, well, they had to have known about Jesus. Had to. I mean, Jesus was the top story on entertainment online, you know. Always there. People knew that or people were talking about him being a charismatic teacher and being a prophet and being a rebel against Rome and against the uptight religious authorities. They knew that he was this miracle worker, and some were even saying that he might be the Messiah. And so when the fishermen saw Jesus stopping with this crowd, for one thing, they were amazed. And then when Jesus looks at them and says, with those eyes and with that commanding voice, "Follow me." No wonder, the scripture says, and immediately they got up, left their nets. James and John even left their father in the boat and followed him. Could you imagine how they felt? And can't you imagine how they felt when they experienced the rest of the story? Note how that passage that Dennis read to you ended. Jesus went throughout Galilee with those 4 men on his coattails, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news, curing every disease, not just some, every disease, every sickness, not just some, among the people. His fame spread. They brought to him all the sick, not just some, those who were afflicted with various diseases, pains, demoniacs, epileptics, paralytics, and he cured them. And great crowds followed him. And as they did so, where were the disciples? Where were those ex-fishermen? They weren't in the stands of Busch Stadium just looking. They were on the field. They were playing because Jesus said, "You are important. And I'm going to build my church upon the spirit that you have. You are my men." And I cannot help but to think that Andrew and Peter and James and John, as they neared the end of their lives many years hence, would look back and they would see that time on the seashore as the defining moment in their lives. And they would say, with Wayne Calloway, paraphrasing him, they would say, "All that I am and all that I have, I owe to Jesus Christ." That is what makes a person a Christian. Did you know that? Oh, it's important to think right stuff. It's important to read the Bible. It's important to be able to take these classes about Christian thought and stances on social issues. It's important to be able to know what those vows are when you take the profession of faith and membership into the church. It's nice to know, I believe in God, the Father Almighty, those creeds. But that's secondary. It really is, to what makes a Christian. What makes a Christian is this: sit on your seashore, look around, and discover that everything is given to you by grace, and that you are gifted more than you can ever imagine, because Jesus has looked at you and has not seen what other people have seen, maybe not even what you have seen in yourself, but he sees a precious brother, a precious sister, and he says, "Follow me." That is what makes you a Christian, because the joy that you have in understanding that you are gifted by him starts a life that's marked by extreme gratitude. Throughout these weeks, these initiative weeks that will lead up to the end of October, I've been visiting various families. It's been great to do. And one young man, I had lunch with him a few days ago, and he told me of his defining moment in this very church. He said it was in the middle of a church worship service, and suddenly, out of the blue, it struck him. For him to be able to sit and worship, just as you are able to sit and worship right now, took a lot of resources, a lot of labor, a lot of practice, a lot of prepping the sanctuary. It took a lot for there to be Sunday school teachers for his children. All of that was expensive. All of that took a lot of stuff. And no one's ever asked him for anything. No one said, okay, for you to get that wonderful anthem, to hear that from Robert Ray, that's going to cost you $7.75. And for you to be able to hear that nice prayer from Stephanie to lift you up, well, that's another, $10.75. Okay, good. No one, we're not going any farther. And so, no one ever gave him a bill. It was free. And he said that was the most amazing revelation he ever had. Friends, it's free. Because you are here because Jesus Christ has called you just like he called those fishermen. What are we to do but to respond with sheer gratitude and joy? And that is what the One Initiative is all about. It's not about doing the projects. You'll hear about the projects, and we want to do the projects because that's going to make quite a difference for Christ in this world. But that's not ultimately what it's about. We will live into the dreams that God has for this church when and only when each of us feel like Wayne Calloway, like that young man I talked about, like those fishermen, overwhelmed by the love of God that you just have to live with that generous joy. So I would ask you, as we start this journey together in what will be a momentous time in the life of this church, I would ask you most humbly and quickly to do three things. Number one, I would ask you, if you've not done so already, to zip on to our webpage and look at that little green rectangle up the upper right that says Community Login. And if you have not clicked that, put in your email address and put in a password to start your account, a password like Pastor Greg was a handsome young man, for example, or something like that. Put that in. Start getting the ability to walk through that door, because that's nothing more than a door that enables you to enter into the life of this congregation. Because when you just open up this little account, you understand all that's what's going on a calendar, all the activities. You can register for anything. You can get connected with other people with their contact information and family directory. You can put in your talents and your surveys. Do you see what it is? God has given you this congregation of friends. God has said, you're part of this. So here is the key to the door. Open it and walk through and see what happens. See how you can be put to use, for you to be a defining moment for a Wayne Calloway. That's one thing. Second thing, very important to really take seriously what Bill Cleveland and the Fulkins said. In this magnificent booklet, keep it close to your bedstand or by your coffee table in the morning. Every day there is a scripture and a devotional thought and a prayer thought for you. This was written not by your staff. This was written by Bill Cleveland and his team of lay people from this church. There's a section as well for every weekend. Sermon notes on Sundays as well as Saturdays. Same sermon themes and passages. Bring it with you. The way to say thanks to Christ is by keeping in touch with the one who's called you to be part of the team, if you will. Definitely bring it with you every time you come to church. Finally, the way to say thanks, and this is a process that will happen throughout these 5 weeks, is to take a good, honest look about you and your finances. Jesus was very bold when he would preach, and his most favorite subject was money. Why was it his favorite subject? Because he knew that how we deal with money is a reflection of our spiritual barometer. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Do you accept money and deal with your money as if you've never heard of Jesus' invitation? As if life is not a giftedness, but a drudgery that you have to build up this money thing to protect yourself, that you have to preserve it, and only begrudgingly do you help others with it. Is that your attitude on the one hand? Or is it that money is like the other gifts that you have received freely by God? And one of the best ways to reflect your gratitude is to be generous with it in the use that God may have for the kingdom. As they had in Acts, the 4th chapter, I believe, all the ones had everything in common in the early church because they were given that and no one wanted. As a matter of fact, everyone had abundance because they were free with it. It was their way of saying thanks. So what you see on the screen there is what you'll see on your commitment card, and I think in the booklet. It's a tool to help you sort of understand where you are and move ahead. There is a section at the very bottom of that giving pathway, if you will, called First Time. Maybe you've never, ever given to God through the church. This is your opportunity. We have about 1,700 families or so in this church, and usually in the annual commitments that we do, we will receive 750, maybe sometimes 800 commitments back. That means that we have about 900 families or so that never returned those commitment cards. They just vanished somewhere. Maybe that might be part of your family. Maybe that's where you are. You have an opportunity to change that, to simply give a gift and to feel good about it because you're saying thanks to the one who called you off that seashore, who believed in you. And maybe if you do that already, you might be challenged to see, how can I make generosity and gratitude more of a regular habit? So you become an occasional giver or an intentional giver, that you enable a couple of times a month for the bank to give the gift on your behalf in the way that they can do that, so that you say yes and feel good when you see that on your statement. Might even be that you can move toward being a tither, someone who gives even 10%. And maybe that's where you are now. You can even maybe go beyond that as you look at yourself over these next few weeks. Why? Because this is the opportunity to say thanks. With your time, your talents, with your money. It's a time to say thanks because someone believes in you, the one who calls you into his presence even now. I started this sermon talking about someone who was very, very, very appreciative of Wake Forest University. Talk about Wayne. Let me tell you about someone. I'll close the sermon with a story not of Wayne now, but of Richard. Because Richard was sort of in the same boat as Wayne. Richard had dreams. He entered St. Louis University. He found out, though, with some circumstances that he could not stay there. He had ambitions and dreams, but the money simply wasn't there for him to pay off his tuition. So he did something radical, audacious. He got an appointment to meet with the president of St. Louis University to explain his situation. And in his latter years, Richard said this, and the president of the university at that time was Paul Reinert. Richard said, "Father Reinert, at that time, told me that he believed in me And he allowed me to stay at St. Louis University at a time in my life when I didn't have the financial resources to pay for my tuition. I promised him not only would I pay my tuition, but that I would pay back the university in an even bigger way in the future. Now, this is an opportunity for me to give back to the university for all the support and guidance I have received as an undergraduate here. It is my hope that the Chaifetz Arena will enhance the on-campus experience for every future St. Louis University student, as well as the city of St. Louis. The words of SLU graduate Richard Chaifetz. Now, you and I might not leave a legacy of a Chaifetz Arena or a Callaway School of Business, but God has taken a chance on us. Christ has chosen us, and the difference we make for Him right here will be legacy enough.